I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director Hayes, would you please read our priorities?
I'll be happy to. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students: to provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff, and to direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impact of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. And Director Kluhl, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
Student School Board Representative Smith, he showed his leadership potential earlier this evening when I asked him about somebody offering to scribe for us later this afternoon, and he volunteered Marissa. So I'm going to follow suit and delegate to you, if you would, the mission and vision statements.
Of course. Our mission statement is to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Superintendent Tate, we have a showcase this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pleased to have Bluegrass School, and I'll call on Principal Diane Simmons to begin.
Good evening. What we're going to showcase are a couple of things tonight. One of them is our ST Math, which is new to the district, and it's our first year at Buchanan with ST Math. And then the next thing we're going to highlight is Plickers, which is new, and I brought along Matt Kurtz, who teaches 4th and 5th grade math, who is going to demonstrate to you what Plickers is all about. On our graph that you're looking at here, the line that has been drawn across is where we would like the students. Actually, at the end of last week, we wanted the students to be at 33% complete with the program. ST Math is a very interesting and challenging intervention that we're using with all of our students from kindergarten through 5th grade, including special ed. Each week we have a goal, and each week we look at our data to see who's reaching the goal. We like the students to increase by 3% each week. By our March Iowa assessment test date, we would like our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to be 75% completed with the program. As you can see here with our line there, almost every single classroom, and the classrooms are the darker shaded, what do you call them? Darker shaded? Bars, thank you. Those are classrooms. The last two classrooms that are the darkest are all of 4th grade and all of 5th grade. The other medium shaded bars are individual classrooms, kindergarten through 5th grade. As you can see, we have several classrooms who are well above where we would like them to be. The students are very engaged with this program. In the morning, we've outlined it so that every student for 30 minutes, 1st grade through 5th grade are on, and kindergarten for 20 minutes. They come in, pick up their tablets or their Chromebooks, and immediately sign on as soon as the bell rings, and they get started. Teachers said it's the most amazing thing. Because the students are engaged, they immediately, without even being instructed, go and get their tablets and Chromebooks and sit down and go to work. When we've had guest teachers in, they've been amazed at how organized the students have been, but they enjoy the ST Math. The thing about ST Math is that there are no words, there's no instruction as to how to do the activity. It's all trial and error. It's very similar to perhaps a video game. And I know I was on the other day trying to do fractions, and it's not as easy as it looks. It can be trying. Right?
Oh, yes, very much so. The difficulty is that there's no words. So if you're trying to do a program that has no words, the kids get stuck very easily. But for them to get stuck, they got to find a way to get unstuck. So it would ding at them if they got it right, or ding at them if they got it wrong. And so that's trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. So, but there's not a lot of support for teachers other than walking around, make sure that nobody's just sitting there. So just make sure to keep going. So if they miss it twice, have them restart that lesson and redo it again.
And if they're stuck too many times, a red bar will go around their screen, and that's when the teacher does step in and gives them support. And it's not that we do it for them, we ask them questions. Tell me what you've already done. What has worked and what hasn't? What did you try before? So you're asking those kinds of questions, and then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, I've got it!" And you're still sitting there trying to figure it out. That's happened to me more than once.
Yes.
Now, on our next screen, this is actually individual students. And you can see that we have students in kindergarten who are more than 60% completed with the program. Same thing in 5th grade across the board. A student or two in every grade level is 60% or above. So we know students are going to be finishing it quicker than the March date that we have set forth. But at the end of the program, there are challenges. Now let Matt talk about the challenges.
So the challenges for ST Math, they usually take about a month long. And what they are is it's all problem solving. So it's problem solving. The kids have to go through the challenges, and maybe Gigi, who's the main character, is a penguin, might be upside down. Your job is to flip Gigi right side up by using one click. And so you got to see if he rotates right to left, left to right, vertical or horizontal, and then you got to get him through the bar.
And this is our first year with our ST Math, so it's a learning year for all of us, students as well as the staff. So we are enjoying it. The students, whenever you ask any student what they think of ST Math, I don't care what grade they're in, the first words out of their mouth, "I love it." So it's very encouraging. It is an intervention program. 5th graders at the beginning, when they started, were working on volume. Is that right?
Yep.
And we thought about, because you can switch around what they are learning at a certain time, and we thought about switching it, but then decided no, because they were seeing something that was going to be on Iowa assessment that is normally not instructed
Till the end of the year.
until the end of the year. So they got to see that at the beginning, so when they get to Iowa assessment, it's not going to be totally foreign to them this year. So we're excited. We can't wait for Iowa assessments.
Right.
I know you don't hear that often, but we can't wait for Iowa assessments just to see how our scores look.
Yep.
Yeah. And any questions on ST Math? Oh, I will tell you this. To log into ST Math, every student had to learn a 13-picture login password. And when we first heard that, we thought, oh my gosh, kindergarten learning a 13-picture password, it's not going to happen. And within 15 minutes, they started with 8, and then they built up. Within 15 minutes, just about all of them had their 8 characters learned. And it was amazing to watch.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So every student has a 13-picture password now that they just go in and sit down and start. It's amazing to watch. I invite you all out to come and watch them first thing in the morning.
That's right.
Now, Plickers.
Well, excuse me, so
sorry.
you were asking for questions on this. Normally, we'll just wait until the end of your whole presentation.
That's fine.
Okay, because I've got some questions,
All
but
right.
I'll wait.
We'll wait.
Can I have you help with this pass out?
Okay.
Great.
I will do that.
I'm going to have Mrs. Simmons pass out these pieces of paper here. This is for Plickers. Plickers is an interactive website used as an app. I was stuck last year at the end of the year. I went to my brother. He lives in Coralville. He's a teacher in the district there. And I said, hey, what do you got that will help me give a ticket out the door, a pre-assessment, check up in the middle assessment that's going to help my kids in the classroom and be instant. He's like, I got the thing for you. I'm like, no way. So he showed me this app. It's called Plickers. So what Plickers is you have to load it all on yourself. It's the first part of it is kind of hard to do. So you got to load it all in. Once you get all your classes loaded in, you get your teachers' names in there. I teach 4th and 5th grade math, so I teach all 4th and 5th graders that go through Bluegrass School. I have a former student over here, awesome student. Hey, Kaylee. So the best thing about this here is that once you get everything loaded in, then it's instant formative assessment. So I have Mrs. Simmons passing out some right now to you guys. And what I'm going to do is go to a live view here, and on my phone, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Plickers app. And as I open my Plickers app, I have a practice class, which is you guys today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up a question for you guys on the board. It says about how many pounds of honey are in the picture below. Sorry, I had to go to bees. I'm a beekeeper, so I had to bring some bees in here. So on this, you can see that on the right-hand side, I have numbers 1. This would be the student's name. I just did numbers for you guys. Number 2, and all the way up to number 20. And then I have review answers if I want to show the answers. And what I have over here is my answers A, B, C, and D. Now, how this is used is for, like, if you're trying to find out what students already know, or maybe what they've already learned, or where their readiness level is at, I can find that instantly with the piece of paper you guys have in your hand. Your paper is different than the person around you. So, for example, I have 21 here, and I have number 22. As you can notice, they're two geometric shapes. They're different. Everybody's shapes is different in this room. But on the shapes, in real small print, next to where your number's at, it says A, one side says B, one side says C, one side says D. So when you hold up your answer, it's not like the old school way of learning. When you hold up your answer, oh man, Billy's got B, I better pick B because I see everybody around the room has B. Well, this one's different. They can't tell who has B, who has A, who has C, who has D. It's just everybody has their own answer, and nobody can cheat off each other. So if this question here, while it's pulled up, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and hold up your card of what you think. Don't worry if you get it wrong. I won't judge you. Oh, you have no background knowledge probably in this area. And I just hold up what you think is A, B, C, or D. And what I'm going to do is use my phone here. And you see number 15 has already been scanned in. And it goes right to my camera on my phone. So as I'm walking around, instantly on my phone I see who's red, who's green. Red tells me right away that that person has it wrong. So that tells me, okay, I got to check with red later on. If I see green, green, that person's good to go. Now, one thing that this here, I got to make sure that you don't have your fingers on the black. If it's on the black, then it doesn't show me the geometric shape that works for you. And so as I'm going around, is anybody miss? Just keep it up. If I miss yours, when I get yours.
13.
I miss from the front of my classroom, I can reach all the way back to the back of my classroom. So if you see your numbers being clicked, and when I have to use cardstock or newspapers here, I can't laminate these because the glare on the camera, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and now that it's been scanned in, I know you have it, it's okay. We're going to check it off, and I know right away 33% of this room got the right answer. So as I go ahead and graph this, you guys can see I had some people that chose A, some that chose B, some that are C, and some that are D. Well, on a frame of honey, which we have here, this is my house, this frame of honey from my house, this here is 5 pounds on the front and 5 pounds on the back. So we get 10 pounds on that frame of honey. So right away, I have instant formative assessment. And then as the kids are talking about their answers, we can talk about what was right, what was wrong, how they got the answer, and then go more right on to the next question. So maybe I'm going to do this question here. And I won't go ahead and scan you guys again for this one, but this one says, why do beekeepers use a smoker? And of course, that is to help calm them down, to sedate them, so that'd be your answer C. And I'm going ahead and going around the whole room. And then I'm going right to the next question. And as I go on to the next question, this one here, I'll scan you guys for this one, see if you know this one. It says, in a swarm, about 60% of worker bees leave the original hive location with the old queen. And so you guys are thinking, well, okay, there's a lot of information in here. We got to talk about 60%, we got old hive, we got old queen. And so you're trying to find that answer, and as you guys are debating about the answer, I'm discussing what's going on in this picture, maybe try and give some background knowledge to help with the answer. So I know it's not totally math, but this one here is showing you guys, because I love beekeeping. This picture on a side note here, as I'm scanning through the room. There you go, great. And the kids are really fast at this. I can get this gun in Transformers. The side of that picture there, I gotta talk about that picture real quick. You see, I can all the way back up there. If it shows up that yours might be gray, this means they're giving me an invalid scan, so I just have to go back and rescan that. Side note real quick, this picture here, gotta bring it up. I'm in the background of this picture, somewhat suited up, but the coolest thing is these two kids right here. These are students in my class. So this is a 4th grader, Peyton Pilgrim, and a 5th grader, Colton Pilgrim from last year. I always talk about bees, and 1/3 of your food source comes from bees and honeybees. And well, they found a hive at a house, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Kurtz, this hive's not going to make it through the winter. You talked about these hives. We found one. Is there any way you can help us get it?" And I said, "Well, you got to talk to your parents first, but there's only one way to help you is if you guys suit up." And so they suited up. I brought some suits from my house. They suited up, and they helped me cut it out, and then we transported that to their farm at their house. So it's a pretty cool story for that one there of Colton and Peyton Pilgrim. This one here is in Mount Pelier, Iowa. I can show you a picture here from a different slide. It looks like this. It's on the fence post. So this is a hive here. What we did is use the knife. We cut out these individual sections and put them on frames. And then the boys used the knife, and I'd be right next to them, help them smoke them to keep them calm. And then they would cut them out and place them in the frames of rubber bands. And then their dad would come over and take the frame away and place it in a new hive. So pretty cool. Long story short, I have a 3-year-old boy. So their dad went to my 3-year-old boy and says, "Hey, you guys need a cow for your Christmas gift." So tried to repay me for making him have honeybees. I'm trying to get a cow at my house. So this Plickers app, really cool, really awesome, very quick. Now, as you can see, is when I go to reports, not. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm everywhere right now. Sorry. All right. So that one there, I already lost on my phone. Was it the question about 60%? That is true. So that was true. So the reason why true, because the old queen takes the new hive away, saying that she's big enough, the hive's strong enough. They're gonna get a new queen in that old hive, and they'll move on to the next hive. So for the ones that swarm's a great thing. All right. So now to get reports, this is the best thing. For reports, I get instant feedback right away, not only on my phone, but let's say later on that school day, hey, did so-and-so understand what we're doing in class? Well, right away I can find out who got the right answer, who got the wrong answer. So I can say person 1, person 2, if they're right or wrong, either green or red, and I know right away where we need to be for the next lesson. I know right away where we need for the next intervention we use. Right away where we need to be down the road. Okay, if this is a pre-test, 2 weeks down the road, okay, how do you do on the pre-test? And I can find it right away at the source of my fingertips. And with the report cards, we have to have 3 strands of evidence. My goodness, we got 20 strands of evidence right here just from Plickers. So it's very easy. It'd be awesome. It's in every classroom. It's free, which is awesome. And like I said, my brother was a lifesaver for showing this to me. It's a great app, and I use it probably about 2 to 3 times a week in my own classroom. So any questions?
All right. Thank you very much for that. We'll open it up. Are there any questions? Director DeSalvo, looks like you're ready.
This is 4th and 5th grade math. Yes. So it's been used. I've been talking about it at the school, and so it's been used in her music room now. So she's starting to develop them now. Some are a little bit on the edge because they don't quite see it yet. But when they finally, we're going to present it in a Wednesday meeting, and when they see it, I mean, it's going to be used like crazy. I mean, it's a good source of information right away. It's that formative assessment, and it makes everybody dependable on their own work. So you can use a smartphone. You can use, we're 1-to-1 technology. So if you have your Chromebook that has a camera on it, there you go. Or if you have, anything that has a camera, you just need a camera. So this one here, I think on the actual, I think it says which. I have an Apple. Apple works. Also works if your Android, says right here, iOS or Android app. So if you have an Android phone, that works too. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Oh. I just got this last year. So yes, I agree. It takes a little bit to get used to doing it, but once you have it, you can store, this is just my year 1, and now it's going to be so much easier next year. So if I go to 4th grade up here, you can see I have my topics in here that we used it for, and my questions I used it for. and I can pull up all their data. So now next year I just got to pull up the topic they're in and go ahead and queue those questions to those classes, and it's already done for me. So the first year is kind of backloaded a little bit. So, yep. Thanks.
Director Snyder.
Your timing is perfect on this. About 4 days ago, I spent an afternoon cutting these out and laminating them for my daughter,
Yeah.
who just saw that program at some education forum she was at the weekend before Thanksgiving. And she was excited about it. I can see your excitement
Oh, it's
about
great.
it.
Yes.
And she's got 2 weeks left with the kids she has now
Mm-hmm.
in her like pre-student teaching, I guess, and she wanted them done to take back and use. And now I kind of understand how they're used, so your timing was great.
It was worth the cutting out then, huh?
But yeah, and I could see if the teachers are excited about it, it's something different for the kids.
Right.
You know, that sounds pretty good to me.
Cool. Thanks.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
As we move the teachers from the stage to the side and they become guides, I think this is amazing stuff. And the good thing about it is it's the technology isn't front and center. It helps you do your work, but it's not about the technology. It's about what you're able to do. And I was just in Dan. I was at Fillmore as a breakfast buddy along with Director DeSalvo this week, and watching what the teacher did in the classroom, multitasking in so many different ways. But I am so appreciative of what teachers are doing in the classroom. This saves you time.
Right.
But on the other hand, if I know that we burden you with lots of stuff to do in the classroom, more than 5, 10, 15 years ago, what teachers had to do. But because of that, teachers are finding more efficient ways to do business.
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of a mixed blessing. I promise not to try to add more to your plate just because you use this wonderful technology, but truly great. The question I had about the math part,
Yes.
it sounded a lot like something that lends itself to the Common Core. But the words that bother some of us are the guessing part with answers. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So if you are doing, let's say, she brought fractions, and you're not sure how to change improper fractions to mixed numbers. And so what happens is they have improper fractions, and it has like fraction bars. And your job is to figure out how to change them. Well, so you might click on 2 if you're changing from 3/2 to 1.5. So maybe you click on 2, and then it shows 2, and then GG's the penguin and kind of makes it halfway across the screen, and it stops and works back. It means you're wrong. And so you got to think, well, if it's not 2, what could it be? Well, it's 1 whole and then 1/2, so you may have to do 1 whole first and then a half of a bar. And so you click on those, and it works its way across. So it is kind of guessing, but if you get it wrong, then it restarts and has to make you do it again. You only get 2 wrongs out of about 10 questions, and then you have to restart the whole lesson of different questions. So it is a little guessing to learn on your own. It's kind of like, she related to a video game Mr. Simmons did. If you do a video game, and you're playing Mario, and you die, and well, guess what? You got to try again. And so you try again, and the next time maybe make it a little bit farther. That's the same thing with the ST Math. So you try your best, and if you don't quite make it, well, then you restart, but you go a different route the next time.
What about the systems? What about the mathematical systems and those kinds of things? I mean, at some point in the future, we're not any longer going to be requiring students to show their work, perhaps, because it's no longer going to be one way to do this. There are many ways to do it.
Yes.
Does this have to be? Does a prerequisite have to be that we talk about systems first, and then you guess? Because then you're making informed guesses.
And in part of the Common Core in teaching math is you learn different methods different ways. So instead of, like we talked about, volume was the beginning of the year for 5th grade, they weren't taught length times width times height for volume. They were just shown, here is a bottle, and how do you fill it up? Well, you find out there's a base, and the base is your length times your width. And then you build in your height by how much is in your volume. And so it's the same thing on this ST Math. They got to figure out a formula all on their own. Well, of course, the formula we know is length times width times height, because that's the way we were taught when we were younger. So it's teaching them the formula instead of just giving them the formula.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a great place for kids to learn. It means interactive. with them. And I mean, you got to pry the kids off the ST math. We got to give them warnings. Okay, you got 3 minutes left, and because they just want to stay on it the whole time. So
Well, in some ways, it's empowering children to find their own rules, find their own way, which sticks
yes.
more than it does if here's the rule, memorize it, regurgitate it.
Right, it builds on the independence of the learning, which is
Mhm.
great. Which is
Empowerment.
what you want, empowerment.
Yeah, great.
Any other questions? Director Hayes.
You had mentioned the red bar, so if they're having difficulties, the red bar, does it just pop up across the screen, or?
There's
How
a
does
couple
it-
ways that red bar comes up. One thing is an unaddressed hurdle, and that's a yellow bar. And so as you're monitoring the room, if you see a yellow screen, that means the child is stuck or they had multiple attempts at it and they can't get it. So what you do on that screen is you triple click in the right-hand corner. You can sign in as a teacher, and then you go back through and say, oh, what'd you do here? Well, I don't know. Well, let's look at your video, and it replays exactly what they did. And they go, whoa, well, why'd you do that? Well, I thought this and this. Okay, let's try something else. And so you can go ahead and go to live view and let them play it, and it either works or doesn't, and they try again. Now, if there's a red bar, that's a hand raised. And they're allowed to click on their own to raise their hand if they're completely not understanding something. But like Mrs. Simmons said, we're not teaching it as in you do this, this, and this. We're like, well, what did you try, and what can you do next? And so they're kind of making their way through the program.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Director Mayfield.
First of all, I think it's a great program that can motivate and keep the attention of young people, particularly students. So I think that's a great thing there. I guess my first question was, are they learning what we would call at one time the basics? Or, because I keep hearing you say something about they're guessing. Now, there is such a thing as educated guess,
Yes.
meaning that you've been taught a certain principle
Mhm.
and you have knowledge to support that guess.
Right.
So where are we at with this? Do they start this right from the beginning? Or are they taught in actual, what I say, basics? I sort of go back to that. I don't know other way of saying
Yeah.
it. Or how is it actually taught?
So, like I said, there's no words. And so they're given a picture, and their job is to solve this picture. So if you're working on place value, and they have flowers. Well, how many flower petals are going to fit inside the flowers? And there's no words. You just look at it and you see, well, I see flower petals, and I see flowers. Maybe they want to see how many flower petals fit inside the flowers. And so they're using their common sense, and they're using the problem solving to try to figure out how many petals fit inside the flowers. And so they click a number. And if it works, well, then they get to go on. If not, well, they got to use more number sense to figure that out by place value. And so it's not teaching them the standard algorithm, I guess, as you would say. It's not teaching them step-by-step procedures. It's teaching them to be problem solvers without having any background knowledge of how to do something. It's kind of like you go to change the oil for the first time, and your dad never taught you.
I don't want to do it 10
You
times.
go there, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I mean, you got to trial and error. So you trial and error, and guess what? You got to get that figured out, or else it's not going to get the oil change. Or making the cookies. I mean, it's trial and error. The first time, your cookies might be flat because you didn't add your leveling, not salt, baking soda. Thank you, baking soda. Or maybe you rice too much because you didn't add your leveling agent, the salt. And so it's the same way. Everything you do in life is just like that. So you got to use trial and error, and you're not going to succeed in everything. Well, this is teaching them. Hey, you're going to get some things wrong, but try again. See what you can do.
It's important to note this is supplemental instruction.
Yeah.
They're still
That's
getting
what
the
I'm
normal
asking.
math instruction. They're still
yes.
basic.
See, I didn't hear
This-
that part to begin with,
Yeah.
Sorry.
and I was listening.
This is above and beyond and supplemental.
This is
That makes a difference.
yes. This is outside the 60 minutes of math time.
Okay.
So this is outside.
This reinforces, but you have to have a history and some type of experience to base those
Oh.
educated guesses on.
Most definitely, yes.
So I understand it
Yeah.
from that perspective, but
Right.
I didn't hear any of that
Yeah.
in the beginning.
So yeah, this is all like the volume part. I don't teach volume till later on, and guess what? They already have a foundation on volume because of ST Math. So in the classroom, they're still learning your standard algorithms, your different ways to find answers.
Sure.
But this is an intervention piece.
Good.
So the kids love it, which is awesome. And when you get science linked to 4th and 5th grade math for boys and girls is awesome. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Any student board members? Anything? I've got a couple of questions. First, I do have to address guessing because it may be that the perception is that guessing is a good way to know things. But and when you use the example of volume being length, width, and height, and yet I was thinking about what is the equation for the volume of a sphere. And do you know that offhand?
Oh, it's got to be, does that include the diameter in there somehow? I'm not sure what it is.
It's 4/3 pi r cubed. And but I know that because I learned it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about the difficulty of trying to guess that equation. You know, I think a box is one thing, but I think I could probably work for a year and not figure out the equation of a sphere. That would be very difficult. And so I just want to advocate that guessing isn't necessarily a good approach. I think in this, like you're saying, it can be. The other thing I was curious about in the first part of the presentation, it looked like you had classes by grade and by teacher,
Yes,
if I interpreted that correctly.
that is correct.
And so then I was thinking, and you drew a line, a horizontal line showing 36% was where you wanted to be, and then you had individual classes by individual teachers, and then you had individual students on that second chart indicated by little dots. When you look at all that data, is the data representative in any way of the what's the right word? Maybe either the success that the teacher has with those students, or do you normalize it in some way and say, well, it might just be that we have better students in this class. What do you interpret from all that data?
For the ST Math part, the data for each teacher, well, this program, remember, is not led by teachers. Students doing it without any support. And so besides if they raise their hand or an unaddressed hurdle. And so as fifth grade and fourth grade teacher, I see those that are higher in ST Math usually are ones that are higher in the classroom. Is that what you're going towards?
I don't think so. I'm just wondering if there's anything to interpret from the data that you get.
Oh, we use it to see where they're at this time of year, and we want to project it by 75% completion of the program before the Iowa assessment. So we use that data for that reason.
Okay, I think that's sufficient.
And so every week we say, okay, we want 3% growth. So we look
Okay.
at 3% growth for
All
each
right,
week.
great. Thank you. And thank you for everything. Any other questions? Director Kluhl.
Well, you got to have some students out there that wondered about the 40% of the bees that didn't follow the queen. I mean, are they like not make the 33% cut that Diane was talking about, and they need remedial?
Those bees stay behind to support the new queen. So yes, so they're staying behind to support.
So a new queen will automatically then develop with that 40%.
About 6 new queens would develop, and of those 6 new queens, the strongest survives.
Is that right?
So they go to a little war. The first queen out will go and sting the rest of them that are not out. That's why they have a straight stinger. When your honeybees have barbed stingers, so they sting you, they die instantly. A queen bee has a straight stinger, and she'll sting you, and then she stays alive.
Did not know that. Fascinating.
But if 2 come out at the same time, then it's war. So, good question.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you very much. Great showcase. All right, we'll move on to student board reports. Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Kaylee, you ready to go?
Okay, so at West this past weekend, we had 2 of our volleyball players make the Iowa All-Star team, Jamie Hendercott and Kylie Emery. We also had a group of girls attend Girls on Fire conference at the Figgy. And then robotics had their first competition, and one of our teams is in first place and the other team is in 5th place. And the top 7 are within like 11 points, so it's really, really close. And our Inspire program has received 2 separate grants. One is a $15,000 grant from SCRA, and another is a $6,000 grant from NASA. And then December 16th, we are hosting a Women in Engineering Day. 8 professionals are going to come in and talk to about 40 to 50 girls in sessions, and we're going to do some demos and get them some hands-on activities, and that's coming up soon too. And that's all.
Okay. All right. At North, North started a fashion club that started about 2 weeks ago. And then we would like to congratulate a senior, Hunter Bell, for winning the Best of Show at the Festival of Trees for the high school art contest. And then National Honor Society has started their fundraising for Brittany's Gifts. We give Christmas gifts to handicap development centers. And then those fundraising includes the teacher lunch, we're starting a Mr. Wildcat pageant, and then also we are starting a flamingo flocking classroom competition.
North's Joy Club also made 4 Thanksgiving baskets for families at need during the holiday season. The North Drama Department is doing a children's workshop December 10th. At North, and then their production of Peter Pan is also going to be on the 10th and the 11th. I have a flyer for you guys after this. And then the North Orchestra and Choir is performing at the Messiah concert next week, along with the North Brass Band. Will be playing Christmas tunes as people walk in. Oh, yeah.
Okay, for Central, we had our 31st National Honor Society induction ceremony last Monday at North, because our auditorium's being rebuilt, of course. 46 new students were inducted, and Mayor Klibsch, he was a guest speaker there, and he challenged students to make the most out of their high school experience by acting as leaders, learners, and having a growth mindset. For the environmental club at Central, we participated in the Garbage Gobble event last Friday, I believe. Was it Saturday? Last Saturday. So volunteers from the environmental club participated. It was at Goose Creek, and by the end, there was freezing temperatures. I don't know if you guys went outside on Saturday, but there were freezing temperatures, biting winds. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. We pulled out a tire, a metal beam, couch cushion, and 2 closet doors by the end of an hour-and-a-half period. So that tells you how polluted our creek was. In addition, several of our foreign exchange students last week gave cultural presentations teaching us about their culture, foods, dances that they had. So these students were from Ukraine, Cameroon, and Pakistan.
And then we had several Central Art students get the opportunity from Augustana to visit Augustana for a filmmaking session. So students were invited to a screening of a locally made film and learn about what happens behind the scenes. So we just wanted to thank Augustana for letting our students come and visit. And then on Saturday, November 19th, students had the opportunity to head to the Catch Up Academy, and this academy helps students with problems in homework and schooling. So there's a bunch of volunteers that come and help them finish homework and learn new lessons. And the program sponsored by Gear Up Iowa and spearheaded by Associate Principal Julie Heller and Troy Claus. Central's student support liaison had over 130 students in voluntary attendance this time around, and we can't wait for the next time. So we'd like to thank all of those volunteers.
Thank you, students. Great reports.
All right, we'll move on to board reports. Are there any? Director Snyder.
Last night, St. Ambrose hosted a state competition kickoff for all of the local high school and collegiate dance teams. And this coming weekend is their state competition in Des Moines. So good luck to Central, West, and North dancers.
Anybody else? Director DeSalvo.
Well, y'all missed the Dancing with the Stars at North, and I will say senior moms stole the show. Just saying. And I think we're on YouTube. It's very scary. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was a great turnout. It was fun. Did you see it? Oh, no. It's a little scary, but it was fun. And then Director Kluel and I attended Breakfast with Buddies last week, Tuesday, I believe it was, at Fillmore. What a great school and what a great event. Were you there too? There was tons of people there. And Mayor Klipsch was there, and school board members were there, and they had firemen and ROTC, and we sat and had breakfast with these, and Mary was there, and then we got to go back to their classroom for a little bit. I had never been to one of these, so I guess they do it once a year, but huge turnout, and the kids were so excited. And talking about the classroom, I was in a kindergarten classroom, and the teacher sat down to read a story. Well, she doesn't read the story. It's all automated, which was very interesting to me. And one little boy got to turn the pages, and then they would have a little discussion, but he, turned by touching the board, and it was very, very impressive. So it was a great experience, and I wish we could do that more often, because it was really, really, really a good event. So.
Any other reports? Director Kluel.
And Dr. Tate and I were at Reading Buddy Day at Garfield last week, and they had, the heartening thing is that they had so many people there that they didn't need me. That everybody had buddies, and so I didn't get a chance to have a reading buddy, but it's good that we had that many people volunteering. And again, Mayor Klipsch was there, police officers, firemen, ROTC, everybody was there. It was just a wonderful turnout. So our community is supporting our kids. It's wonderful.
Anybody else? Okay, one of the things that the agenda committee decided was to talk about the opportunities for community visits, and I'm going to ask the superintendent to talk about it a little bit, and then there's some things that we will be seeing eventually on our calendar. But Superintendent Tate, you want to talk a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just would like to remind the directors that we do put out this calendar to indicate opportunities for you to either visit things that are happening in the community or to volunteer. And you can, what we'd like you to do, if you'd call Mary and let her know you're going so she can put it down. And also if you hear of things happening, because John Border is doing this for us, and he's got a pretty good ear to the community, but if you know something's going on where it would be good for you to see and be seen, and where we can relate to the community, and especially the families, then please let us know, and again, volunteer to go to some of these activities.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to communications. Director Hayes, would you please read those for us?
I'll be happy to. Monday, December 5th at 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole meeting here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. Tuesday, December 6th at 3 p.m., the Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting here in the ASC Jim Hester, the Executive Boardroom. Wednesday, December 7th at 4 o'clock, the Policy Committee meeting in the ASC Executive Boardroom. Monday, December 12th at 6 p.m., regular meeting here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. Friday, December 23rd, closed for the holiday. Monday, December 26th, closed for the holiday. Friday, December 30th, closed for holiday. And Monday, January 2nd, also closed for holiday.
Thank you. Next is open forum. Oh, excuse me. Director Mayfield.
Does that mean the offices are open on the other days since you're pointing out the days that are closed? December 23rd, 26th, 30th, and 2nd. So are you open as normal on those other days?
Yes. Any days, I wasn't listening that close, but any day she didn't mention, then it's a regular weekday.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just being sure.
Thank you for that clarification. Next is open forum, and we have no open forum requests. Right. Thank you. And again, we just always do look forward to open forum participation. And if you do get a chance to come a little bit early, fill out a request and get it to our secretary before the meeting, it will facilitate getting you up here. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the vote. Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director, and I apologize, Director Gosa. I apologize for not mentioning earlier. Director Gosa is attending our meeting by phone, so he will be participating, and he has been listening to the meeting so far. Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Kluel,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding bill listing period 11/10/16 through 11/23/16?
Mr. President,
Director Kluel.
I move that the board approve the following resolution regarding the adoption of bills. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of November 10th, 2016 through November 23rd, 2016, with the following two voided checks, that being check number 342587, payable to Quick Goal in the amount of $913. That was the wrong vendor. And also check number 342597, payable to Nicole Ouimet in the amount of $450.51. That check was voided and replaced.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I've got one or two questions. On the bill review summary, there are 6 specific checks that are pulled out, and one of them is for, it appears, 2 Ford cargo vans. And then further down, it looks like, if I'm interpreting correctly, there's some van shelving. I assume that that shelving went into the vans, but I don't know if that's true or not. Are there specific policies in the district that require, like, that we get new vehicles after so many miles, or how do we make decisions on things like that?
There's not a policy. What Mike would have at the Operations Center is a replacement schedule so that he knows the ages of the vans and, you know, what kind of work they've had done on them. I know that we've been pushing off replacements, trying to run them as long as possible, but I also know that 1 or 2 of the vans you could actually see through the floorboard, and we didn't feel that that was safe any longer, so we went ahead and replaced them.
Do we have similar approaches to other vehicles in the district?
All of the vehicles that we have at the Operations Center, whether it be vans or the district cars, to the tractors, all that sort of thing, he has a schedule as to when they were purchased, what the history of any maintenance or work done on them is, and then when we should start really watching whether or not we want to replace them or keep running them, you know, as long as we can. But we do have a replacement cycle. It's not always kept adhered to. Most often than not, we try and push it back as much as possible.
Thank you. The other one was on the vision insurance payment for October. So it's just under 20,000, and it says district-wide. So my interpretation of that is that's separate from our regular health insurance payment. And so does this come out of the general fund or does it come out of the insurance fund?
It comes out of the insurance fund, but remember the insurance fund is funded by the general fund.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just thinking about insurance holidays and how they affect the insurance fund and whether it affects this fund as well.
The vision insurance is just one of the insurances that's actually in the insurance fund. We would have vision insurance, dental insurance, as well as medical insurance. All of those are in the insurance fund.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluel,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the last week, both the SCRA and the RDA made their announcements of grants that they were giving for the upcoming cycles in the Creative Arts Academy, the Inspire Academy at West, and Fillmore School, all benefited from the generosity of those who go out and gamble. And it's nice to have that to support us. I want to make mention of the Davenport Community Schools highlights that's done by our community partnerships, public relations, and you get it every week. And as I go through it, I just think, goodness gracious, I wish everybody in the city could see all the wonderful things that's happening, because it's accolade after accolade after accolade of our students, of our schools, of our faculty, of the great thing that's happening. And I asked Rachel to talk a little bit about who this goes to, so you can see we're trying our best to get this out to the community.
This vehicle actually started several years ago as an internal document featuring high schools only, and then over time we've really grown, and now we compile stories submitted from across all of our schools. Many of our PTAs and parent groups also participate. It goes out to elected officials, business leaders, all of our stakeholder committees, including the NCSP and LCAC committee that you're familiar with. DARSPA and our museum sign up when we collect emails from them, our ambassadors program, all of our volunteers, parents, our local realtors, and then it also is still distributed internally through DCSD. You'll also notice we're often out at events, and especially hit every year the retirement dinner, because we stay in touch with our retirees and encourage them to sign up on the list as well. So if you are aware of folks that you think should be receiving this, please submit their names and emails to us. We'd love to include them. They'll receive an initial outreach, and there is an unsubscribe option. So if they don't want to receive the publication, they can edit their profile and choose which types of communications they'd like to receive. We work closely in our department to make sure that people can modify their profile. They can still continue to get emergency communications, for example, from Dawn, and not receive the weekly newsletter if that's too much for them. So lots of options for people.
Thank you, Rachel.
You bet.
Mr. President, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. That is pretty cool. We'll move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding approval of paraeducator negotiation team members?
Mr. President?
Director Kluel.
I move that the board approve the following negotiation team members for paraeducator contract negotiations. Team members proposed are Claudia Wood, Associate Director of Finance, Marianne Corbin, Principal of Sudlow Intermediate, James Kroger, Human Relations Specialist, Deb Miller, Director of Human Resource Services, Jabari Woods, Associate Director of Human Services, James Hanks, Ehlers Law Firm, and Megan Fox, Human Resources Generalist.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Are all the paraeducators union?
Yep.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Kluel,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion for approval of custodian negotiation team members?
Mr. President,
Are they, I think you said, are they union?
Are they all part of the union?
No, you're asking, has every employee in the union?
No, just the paraeducators.
Are all the paras, every employee in the union?
Right.
No, that's not correct. It's all volunteer basis.
Well, no, hang on. I mean, I think we're trying to clarify the information that we had. I think, boy, this is a little awkward. Why don't you go ahead and explain, Jabari?
Sure.
What you're going to explain, and then I'll decide what to do.
No, not every para is a part of the union. There are a group of paras that pay an annual fee to be a part of the union, and those are who are represented in the bargaining groups. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question clear enough. And that's across the board for all 5 classified bargaining groups.
And Director DeSalvo, or in fact, Mary, can you tell me what you recorded? What was the question?
Well, I had put down the question as, are all paraeducators in the union? That's how I recorded it.
Okay, that's how you recorded it. And Director DeSalvo, I think that's how you asked it, right? And so there was a misunderstanding when you first heard it, right?
Right.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and I don't even know how to properly do it, but I am going to recall the vote in case that change in information affects anybody's decision. So, and I'll deal with the minutes later. So I'm going to call the vote again. Let's see here. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Thank you for bearing with me on that. We'll move on to 10.02. May I have a motion regarding approval of custodian negotiation team members?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board accept administration recommendation to approve the following negotiation team members for custodial contract negotiation. Marcia Tangens, Chief Financial Officer; Michael Maloney, Director of Operations; Deb Miller, Director of Human Resources; Dan Burlingame, Associate Director of Operations; Marianne Corbin, Principal, Sudlow Intermediate; Jabari Woods, Associate Director, Human Resources; Jamie Kroger, HR Generalist; Julie Ditch, HR Generalist; James Hanks, Ehlers Law Firm.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Does the responsibility for the custodial staff lie under Dan Burlingame?
I would say Mike Maloney oversees all of it, but Dan directly works with the custodial department,
Okay.
along with Marilyn Wolford as a custodial specialist.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of food and nutrition negotiation team members?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation and approve the following negotiation team members for food and nutrition contract negotiations: Marcia Tangen, Chief Financial Officer; Mickey Carrington, Food and Nutrition Service Supervisor; Marianne Corbin, Principal, Sudlow Intermediate; Jabari Woods, Associate Director of Human Resources; Jim Hanks from Ehlers Law Firm; Jamie Kroger, HR Specialist; and Lynn Tibbetts, HR Generalist.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Kluel,
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of secretarial negotiation team members?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the following negotiation team members for secretarial contract negotiations. Lisa Baxter, Principal, Harrison Elementary. Jamie Kroger, HR Specialist. Claudia Wood, Associate Director of Finance. Deb Miller, Director of Human Resource Services. Jabari Woods, Associate Director, Human Resource Services. Jim Hanks, Ehlers Law Firm, and Shelley Godke, HR Generalist.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Kluel,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to discussion items. And we only have one discussion item listed. That's board goals, and I would ask Director Kluel to lead that, please.
But you all compacted yourselves nicely there, so this will work out. We've never had a board that would do that. When we went to a lot of people, they would just kind of separate. You guys would be together. No. I gave you one. Oh, I wasn't trying to separate anything. I was just noting that our student school board members, you know how they usually separate out, you know, they're across, but these guys always are together. You hadn't noticed that. It's interesting. It's interesting.
They're sort of like board members. We didn't all shift.
Yeah, at first, but then we did. I'm sorry, but I digress. We're back at it. We're doing board goals again. Dr. Tate doesn't get one. Usually he goes back and sits in the back about this time. Okay, good, good. All right, Mary's looking for a you okay? All right. Vera, you're not in the choir at this point. You don't get to talk. It's my turn here. All right, let's get started. I think we might be able to move through this tonight and be done. There's a good possibility that might happen. Normally what we do is we'll do this during a work group session, our committee of the whole meetings, but we're trying to optimize our time, and we have no other discussion items tonight, so here we are with board goals again. Now, we have, over time, we've worked through this process. We started probably about 9 years ago and created this vision. And just one of the student school board members, you got the vision statement up. You could read that.
Education that challenges conventional thinking prepares all students to compete in a global society and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Marissa, what does it mean to you? What does that vision mean? You know, we read this every meeting, but we never talk about what does it mean to you?
I think that it means that as a community and then as like a school district, we're trying to get everyone in on the education, that we are trying to make sure that parents are included with their students and that the teachers are making sure that the curriculum is something that they think these kids are going to need in the future. And I think that it gives teachers and students and parents the right to ask and question if maybe they don't think that this is something they need, or maybe they think they need to be learning something else. I think it gives the community as a whole something to come together and then talk about. And it's a lot more, not informal, but it's a lot more easier for them to come in and say what they think they want to say. So I think
Yeah.
it's really good at bringing people together.
That's great. You're right. When we put together a vision statement and we actually invite people to participate with us to come in, it's just like with Fillmore and Garfield, where all these people were coming in from outside. They felt like they were wanted, that they were needed to be part of the educational program. So we created that vision, it was probably 9 years ago, and we went out to the community and we gathered together about 17 different focus groups to come up with the ideas about what it was that people wanted for a vision statement. The board then crafted the statement, and like Marissa said, it is intended to incorporate the entire community into the educational process. Our mission statement has been around forever. I don't know how long we've had that mission statement. Can somebody read the mission statement?
Enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community.
I'm going to move it to the other side. Good. I think the reason that we didn't play around with the mission statement is that it is that good. I think it's very direct and to the point. To you, what does it mean?
Well, I think outright, you know, we have a very diverse community in Davenport. If you go to other communities, Bettendorf, Moline, you might not see quite the diversity we have in our schools. So to be able to provide that quality education, that having such a diverse community might make a challenge, like different learning styles, I suppose, different home environments. Providing a quality education to those people is a very important and valuable mission, I think, to us. So I think that's what it is.
Exactly. I mean, that's my thinking too, that we can't do that quality education without that diverse community. That diverse community is part of what makes Davenport the school district that it is. Then we've got our priorities. And Director Hayes, what's one of our priorities? Just one word.
One thing that we said is we wanted our students to graduate with 12th grade math skills, reading skills, communication skills.
We do, but we also established our two priorities as well. Our two priorities, you recall? That we read every time. See, that's why we're doing this, because we read it every time, but I want us to think about it. So one of the priorities that we have established, Linda, was?
One of our priorities is for the poverty, and the other one is for...
I was going to make Director Johansson sweat on the second one. But poverty is the first one. And so you got fed your line. You don't have to. I'm sorry, Linda, to put you on the spot.
Don't throw us under the bus.
So we've developed these two priorities.
Can I answer?
Well, you can. You're not on Flickr here, but go ahead.
Raise your hand.
Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classroom, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff.
Yeah, I do love that happiness part. That's so important, happiness. So anyway, those are priorities that we're all working on. We're focused on those. And then what we've got is our belief statements. Now, I'm using this triangle, and Coach John Wooden would probably appreciate that. Clyde's got the wooden triangle up in his building.
Pyramid.
What?
It's not a triangle. That's a pyramid if you're talking John
It's
Wooden.
this pyramid. Mashed potatoes, if you watched Third Encounters. You're not old enough. Encounters of the Third Kind. It was a great, great movie. Mashed potatoes, he mushed them up into a triangle shape, pyramid shape. But the belief statements are something that, we come up, this is the core of what we believe. Now, the folks back here behind this table are pretty locked in with their belief statements. I mean, they've decided what it is that's important in life. They're Democrats, they're Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I want you students to be involved with this session, but frankly, your belief statements, your beliefs are still setting in. They change over time, and it's not that we're all locked in absolutely. We can change, but you are very flexible. But I think your value is that you come at this without saying, oh, we tried that before, we can't. So you're going to take some risk. You're going to make some statements that adults might say, oh, no, that doesn't work at all. But risking is an important part of what we're trying to teach in our school, so you're welcome to take a risk tonight. So we've got a vision, we've got mission, we've got priorities, we've got our core beliefs for what we believe. What's missing? Goals. Goals. Goals are missing. So why goals? Because, we've got this wonderful, Linda, I keep referring to you with the Bible story. The wise man built his house upon the rock, the foolish man built his house upon the sand. What we've got is we've got a sound foundation here of what it is, where we're going. The vision leads us all. But we've got these belief statements, but what do we do with them? Because one of our board members, Jamie, said, I often look at the belief statements we've got downstairs on the first floor when he's walking out of the building, and he says, well, we've got those belief statements, but what are we doing with them? Well, we really didn't know what to do. We sat down for hours and determined what they were, but what do you do with them? So they're posted up on the school buildings now. The goals are the things that we can measure. We've got these strong belief core statements, beliefs that we have. Now we will develop goals, and everything informs everything else all the way up here as we go up to the vision. And it works back down too. So to me, I think with this suite of principles we've got up here in this pyramid, I think we've got a very firm, intentional path to reaching our district's vision. So in order to get rolling tonight, what I've done is I've given you copies of the belief statement. I've also given you copies of some thoughts that I had. But I don't want you to get caught up in what I wrote. I just put that in there as kind of something to start with. And Marissa has kind of like volunteered to scribe tonight. Was volunteered. I'm going to put you over here, Marissa. So we've got our first belief statement. Can somebody read the first belief statement?
Do I just go ahead? We believe all students can and will learn in the Davenport Community School District.
Okay, and what I did, as I said, here's a possible goal statement. And what I'd like us all to do, and again, I want student school board members, including Marissa, to feel free to chime in here during the evening. But let's do like a verb. Let's make 2 or 3 words. And Marissa will kind of jot these things down for us. So with the first one, what I suggested that if our belief statement is that all students can and will learn in the Davenport Community School District, we will monitor achievement. So Marissa, if you could just monitor achievement as one thought in terms of a goal that we, the board, can do to enact this belief statement. So I got it started with that, and I know that Julie has some thoughts already written down. But let's just kind of brainstorm a little bit about that first belief statement, put some ideas down, and then we'll come together and come up with a statement. So feel free, everybody, you don't need my permission. This is like a workshop thing here, so go ahead,
Yeah,
President
but
Johansson.
we still want somebody to direct us, right? I mean, you don't want us.
I'll
to
tell you
just-
when to be quiet or when we've had enough. Yeah. If the cockles of your
That
heart
was
start
good,
going
Rich.
overboard, I will say something to try to push them down a bit.
All right. I was thinking about measuring student achievement instead of just monitoring.
So let's put measuring. Ditto marks. Measuring. And you're thinking there, Ralph, instead of monitor, you're thinking measuring because
Because just monitoring, I think, is quite a bit different. It means you might be overseeing it, but not measuring it.
Okay. My thought was that when I said monitor as a verb, I said that the board will monitor routinely. But certainly there has to be a measure there. So just to clarify what I was thinking, I want this to be something that the board routinely asks of administration. Let's
Mhm.
monitor the measured performance.
Yep. And my thinking is just a little bit more direct because of all of the things, even that we saw in the showcase. It was much more than just monitoring. I believe they were actually measuring how well the students were doing in both the math and in the flipper or whatever the word is
Okay.
that they used. Filbers? Huh? Clicker. Anyway, that's my thinking.
So your thinking is then that you want the board then to be aware of the measuring of achievement. Because the idea here is what can the board do? Could you make that into an action statement that the
Okay,
board should-
assure that student achievement measurement is being done.
Assure measurement. Yep. So let's assure measurement. Somebody else.
I'm on measurement, but also we had talked about the third grade level and holding back with summer school, and I wanted everything just to meet or exceed their potential, which is equivalent to their grade level. So even with the little brochures that are handed out in kindergarten, you should do this, that everyone is at their level grade by grade, so when they get to the end, it's measured that they're actually where they should be, rather than using the third grade as a benchmark.
Okay. How can we write that?
Well, I think it would be covered in measure.
At every grade level.
At every grade level.
So let's measure at every grade level. That's interesting. I mean, every grade level, because we had a little bit of discussion about that. Okay, other thoughts, Jamie?
I think the word growth is kind of important. I look at a goal as something you have to work at to achieve. When you say monitor or measure, we can do that tomorrow, but it doesn't mean we're doing any better. I mean, that's not really a goal. That's, you can just flat out do that tomorrow. But it doesn't mean we've gained anything.
So you're looking at the end result. You want to see an actual improvement. You want to see the growth. You want to see what's really happening.
I like the idea of growth, but I think we can we can have growth without actual them being on grade level or above. And I think if that's our goal, to have them on grade level or above, somewhere that needs to be stated. And the only way you can do that is to have growth each year. I mean, it's implied rather than said. But if you're on grade level or above, pretty sure you have to have some growth there. That's the only way you can keep up on grade level as you're proceeding through school. So whether you think you need to say the actual growth, or is it implied through your goal that you have to be on grade level, or we're striving to be on grade level or above?
So I want to we've got 12 of these to go through, so I want to go through them rather quickly. Because I do want to get done tonight. I think we can do it. But I don't want to inhibit discussion. But I've got a sentence that I want to start with, and that's measurable growth at all grade levels. Expect measurable growth at all grade levels. That's okay.
I like that.
Expect measurable growth at all grade levels. I think that puts everybody's words in. Okay, let's run with that.
Expect measurable growth at all grade levels.
Good, got it. Okay, got number one. Number two, goal number two, or belief number two, is that every individual in the Davenport Community School District deserves respect and should be respectful of one another. And for this one, I simply put, we should model this behavior. The board should model behavior. Model behavior. Every individual in the Davenport Community School District deserves respect and should be respectful of one another. Now, what can the board do? Because these are things that we're actually looking for the board to take accountability for, President Johansson.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is your opening remarks. And in your opening remarks, the way that I wrote it down here is that you said goals are things we can measure. And so I've been thinking about how do I measure respect or measure modeling respect. And I've just been challenged with it. But I think your opening remarks are right, that goals generally are, especially if we adhere to the idea of SMART goals, but even goals are normally measured. I just couldn't figure out how to measure that.
It's a good point. Student school board members, can you think a way that we could measure our expectation that every student, every individual in the district, students, teachers, staff, everybody deserves respect and should be respectful of one another? Is the way to try to put a measure on that?
Well, we always hear about referrals and write-ups in class. So a goal for us would be to reduce those, obviously. That would be a good measurement of respect and giving and receiving respect between students and teachers.
That's something that would be readily measurable, right, Dr. Tate?
It is. It happens to be measured in our teaching and learning plan. It's according to how much you want to mimic what's in here or not mimic it, and that gets pretty specific.
So is there something in that teaching and learning plan that you could draw out
The
that you would
district will reduce the office referrals by 10% from the previous year.
That's not a bad start.
I like it. Marissa, you were going to say something.
Maybe along with referrals for bad behavior, push a lot more of teachers giving good reports, sending them home with kids, emailing parents maybe, increasing that and like giving a lot more student recognition, and then also encouraging students to recognize teachers.
We should measure the good along with the negative.
Yes.
I think you're right. And I know in elementary school, I've seen teachers that would actually mark on their computers every time a child does a positive thing, and they keep track of those things at elementary. I don't know that we do it so much. And we don't measure it, or we certainly don't keep records of it in middle and high school.
I like the way that was worded, though. I like the reduction.
I think let's go with that particular item. But we got to make a note, Mary, that we need to look at something positive to look at, not just the negative.
And what was that again, Dr. Tate?
The district will reduce the office referral rate by 10% from the previous year.
Thanks, Marissa. That's a good point. President Johansson.
So if that's the district, the board would have a different expectation, or a different verb, I think, attached to that goal, wouldn't it? Because it wouldn't be the board that would reduce the referrals. And I don't know whether the board expects,
It's a good point. Again, it gets back to the same thing as the first item. What we do is we expect to be able to monitor. The board wants to see these things in front of them on a regular basis. So we'll word that. We'll work on that wording. And it may be the same word for almost every one of these. There's an expectation, and there's the fact that the board is going to monitor each of these items. So we can probably find some words that will fit for each of these. Very good.
And then, like, if we could do something on the positive, like, I don't know if you form a group of students to say what would be a good reward for you for respectful behavior. You know, what would you at different levels? You know, we need to throw that in there too, because it needs to be acknowledged, and I think that's how we're going to change that behavior, is make it something that they want to do, because they, not only is it the right thing, but we dangle a carrot in front of them, and you get, I don't know, some sort of reward. I hate that we have to do that, but I think in some respects we have to, in order to get some of these kids to understand the respect.
Maybe like an official ceremony or something like you could put down on applications, I got an award for respect, and then you have maybe a couple teachers say some words. We can also nominate teachers so that they have that, and then maybe just at like each high school, a couple students from each grade get submitted, and then the school does one, and then maybe those students could apply for a district-wide application with teacher recommendations. That would help, especially like 9th and 10th and 11th. Like they'd be filling applications like they would for like college and stuff, and they'd be getting recommendations from teachers at that. I think that might be a good way to go.
So do we write our goal to say, let's put it out to these kids, and you come up with something that you think will work, and then?
I think what we've got is we've got a good measurable goal, but what I would like the student school board members to do is to come back during student school board reports next time and offer some ideas, such as Marissa has mentioned, that we might be able to put in as a board goal to act as a balance for this negative thing that we're looking at.
Right.
It's a good point.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts?
Okay, so I was actually at Fillmore for this ODD when we were doing the hunger drive, and during that whole entire ODD, they had this huge ceremony. Some of it attendance, some of it just awards for not being tardy, but then there was this classroom competition to where they passed around this like award to each classroom, whoever had the least amount of referrals or the least amount of things, and kids got so excited at like Fillmore for receiving these awards, and they do it monthly. So whichever classroom each month has it got that award.
Yeah, I think it's going to be easier at the elementary level, but if you would write that down for next time for the elementary kids, that would be good. And you guys are in the best position to figure out what might work at the middle and high school level. Okay. Jamie?
Just one last thought on this one. The belief reads, every individual in the Davenport Community School District deserves respect and should be respectful of one another, but yet our goal only talks about student respect. So the goal doesn't jive with the belief. So I guess in wording that, something's got to give.
Yeah, and I don't think the tail should wag the dog. I think it's a good belief statement. President Cheney, some thoughts?
So a couple thoughts. One is I really like the students' input on this. I think this idea that is forming is pretty cool. And I was also thinking that we could and maybe should, I don't know, but have more than one goal per belief. I don't think we're limited to one goal per belief.
Certainly not.
And I think that this one might be one that almost begs for more goals. Because I agree with Director Snyder, we can't just limit respect to students?
This is an adoptive process. I mean, at some point we would like to have a set of goals that we can put up again on the wall. But I think, there's no need to rush through this. We've got the students coming back with information next meeting. I'm going to make a note that, that this particular goal in particular, there could be more than one goal. As far as the student participation, Dilbert has really gone downhill in my estimation. I don't think it's very funny anymore, but there was this one Dilbert, and it had Dilbert was doing some stuff, and the title of it is that basically engineers don't idle well. He was doing all kinds of stuff. Fact is, we've got a lot of intelligence school board members, and they idle a lot. And so, I see this as a way to engage their intelligence, and obviously it's coming out. So, so this is an adoptive process. This is not something we're going to be voting on at the next meeting, but I think if we can get through developing a statement for each one, we're going to make some headway. So number 3, belief statement is that we must have high expectations for every student and that each student will reach their full potential. And my thinking on that was that we have to assure that staff have the time, resources, and professional development to identify the potential in each student. So the 2 words are basically staff time, staff resources, which means time, the funding, everything that they need to be able to identify the potential in each and every student. Hey, Dan, feel free to pop in anytime. I know it's hard without the paperwork in front of you.
Oh, and we could read. Oh, I think you are.
I shot some pictures on my phone and sent it to him.
Okay, great, thanks. What I was going to say is that staff is kind of a strange word, and I'm not sure what you're getting at there, but I think that another part of this is leadership. And I think about that from the top, the superintendent, the directors, the principals. There's a lot of leadership that I think goes into helping every student, helping us to identify the potential in each student. And so that's why I was curious about your use of the word staff. Does it mean everybody, or is it more focused on teachers?
I like your idea of broadening out. My thought really was that it would not be staff, it would be teachers. And perhaps we ought to limit this one to teachers. I mean, truly, every member of our community has an impact on finding the potential in our students. I know the janitors at my daughter's elementary school had a part in that. But I think for us, I think it's really teachers. Teacher resources, so that teachers who are most directly involved with students every day can identify the potential. We need teachers to be able to have the time, and as our teacher tonight represented himself, he's making time to deal with each individual student, which is just amazing, given all that goes on in a classroom.
I would have to agree with Ralph, though. Leadership carries more than just the teachers. Teachers are very vital, but all that support staff, all the people that are expected to step out and help and support the student, leadership sort of covers them all. And our main leaders obviously are the teachers in the classroom, but there are so many more leaders than just the teachers themselves. Leadership really covers them all.
Marissa, help us out with this one.
I know that there's a lot of high expectations coaches put on their athletes, especially student athletes. They are making sure that these kids are going to the weightlifting. They're tracking that. They're telling kids if you need to be going to study tables. They're helping them balance their other extra activities like clubs and like music and all that stuff. So I think teachers would be very limiting.
Okay. Tabitha?
The whole question is if the potential, like the word potential, is limited to only in the classrooms, because if you're limiting to teachers, you're only limiting potential within the classroom, and core curriculum. There's community involvement. There's getting job shadows that are optimizing the potential. There's things lots of administrations, coaches, things can do that gets you potential in different aspects. So the whole question is, how are we limiting the potential? Because that is a deciding factor on who is involved.
Yeah,
with
like
it.
guidance counselors help
Yeah.
kids so much with
Okay,
college and
Uncle, I will stand down and admit that it is everyone, every single person. How are we going to measure? How are we going to do that again? Because we've really expanded this.
If I could, I mean, you ask a really kind of an odd question, because it makes me think about how I measure everything else with a sensor. And so, well, that's the way I'm thinking, okay? So I'm thinking about student potential, because when I set up a range, the range is always 0 to, say, 100%. Nobody can be above 100%, because that wouldn't make sense. And if there were a way to do it, and I think there is, it'd be kind of difficult, because we're talking about each student here. So we have 15,500 students, and I think that as we've talked about student achievement, what is student achievement, the potential of every student is probably different, I'm thinking. But every student would have a potential of 100% of their potential, whatever that means. And I think that there would be an algorithm that we could develop. It would take some time. I don't know if it's right, but it's just my thinking. But I think about our student board members here, and each one of them has a certain potential, which is 100%. Right? You don't believe that
No, I think that's where you have to get yourself out of a compressed gas tank and realize that students have more potential than 100%. They're not limited.
Well, that sounds-
At some point in time, we'll start talking about being able to get a 4.5 rather than a 4.0.
I understand that, but
There is no limit on the potential. The only limit is an individual's intellect and the education that they're provided. But I don't think I'd limit it, but I would not limit it at 100%, but that's maybe an esoteric question.
yeah, I don't understand how you can have more than 100% of anything. But anyway,
About when a jar fills over the top.
when it's full, it's full.
But
You can't say I can overfill and I can shove more product in there. But anyway, what I'm thinking though is that there,
Unless it's Jell-O.
I'm sorry.
Goes up on top.
what I'm thinking is that there
It
is
does, the meniscus.
there is a way to maybe, and think about the ST Math. I think there's data in there, and they're looking at all of these things. I suspect there's a way to say, here's an individual potential. Think about the Iowa Test of Basic Skills when we were kids, and the maximum score that you could get was 99, right? Because that indicated that you were in the top 1%, the way that it was measuring.
It's a norm reference test.
Yep. And I'm just thinking that if you had a multidimensional algorithm that would be able to describe potential, you could apply it to individual students, which is what we're saying here.
Oh, I like that. So the student members are going to come back with information in student report time next time. You are going to come back during board reports talking to us about the algorithm. Okay? Okay. But in the meantime, has anybody got an idea about what we could today? Yes, yes.
To bring it back to the belief statement, towards the end it says each student will reach their full potential, and the goal explains that the staff will identify the potential. I think we also need to make sure the student has those resources so they can achieve their potential. Not only staff identifies it, the student needs those resources so they can fulfill their potential.
Well, it's a very good point. And I'm trying to think if any of our belief statements we talk about the resources we give to students. All I can do on that is make a note of that. It's a good point. The resources for students, because that certainly, I mean, our poverty priority deals with the impediments to reaching full development. So that's a lack of resources. So good point. How do we measure this thing?
Algorithms.
Do you have the equation?
I know Ralph, and he's going to be caught up in some other thing, and he's never going to get back to us on that.
She's got it. She's got the she's
Got
got the
it, Kaylee?
algorithm.
Okay, I think one way that we could measure potential is have the students identify where they want to be by the time they graduate high school, like depending where we start. And so they're picking their potential per se, and it's the staff and counselors and everyone's job to make sure they have the resources they need to get to their goal, which they perceive as their potential. Like, I want to graduate with X amount of college hours, plus I want to be able to take this amount of AP classes and this. And so they identify where they want to be by the time they graduate, and that's kind of how their potential is developing.
Yeah, and like the teachers push them for bigger goals than what they think they can achieve.
Yeah, like, and then if a counselor says, you know, oh, you want to be, I don't know, like a post office man. Well, why don't you try being a teacher or being a member in government, because I see these qualities in you that make you good for it. So the staff can help push the students to the potential they feel they can meet, and then the students can pick their own potential that they want. They can either agree with the staff or not and lay out a system to meet that.
There's your algorithms. So you have a path, all different paths. Everybody would have a different path based on what they want to do and how staff, teachers, counselors get them there. And the first shot might not be, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to be that post office worker. I want to be a teacher, or I want to be a welder, or the president of the United States. You know, like, yeah, I mean, seriously, you know, there's different paths based on their potential as we see their growth and their development, you know, whether it's kindergarten or first grade or whatever. They're in high school more relevant, but ninth grade, you know, what do you aspire to?
Yeah, and I think starting at a young age, like that's what my parents had me do. Like, what do you want to do? And like, what are your goals? And I think teachers pushing these kids at like shoving, but like at like first grade, kindergarten level, I think that's going to get them to motivate themselves at such a young age. So there's a lot of families that the parents are too busy doing things, or they just don't care that much to push their kids to see their full potential. And I think by doing that, not just at a high school level, but at an elementary level, it gets these kids to realize that they can do a whole lot more than what they think they can. I like it.
Well, that's the most concrete example,
That's good.
Kaylee, that we've had so far. I appreciate that. You have another comment?
Yeah, like when I was in 8th grade, I was taking classes at West, so my schedule at Walcott was all screwed up, and I ended up being a tutor for the elementary kids. And what I found with the elementary kids is they'll kind of take their own path, but if you suggest, like, hey, you know, you're doing really good at this, but how about we try getting to this level, they like being pushed, and they always have a need to please who's ever in charge, like their teacher or the people working for them. So I feel like a lot of the elementary kids would be like really willing to work towards their potential if we figure out like a system to get them to do that.
Well, that's good. Dr. Tate, what age do we start tracking kids? We start working with them in developing career ideas in 4th grade. When do we start working with them and talking about job possibilities.
Well, JA starts in kindergarten, but not every child gets junior achievement. So really, it's in intermediate school, and we have a requirement from the state to actually make sure that each student has a plan, and that really tracks through high school.
Well, Kayla, that's the best idea that we've had in terms of trying to actually measure success against a standard that a student themselves sets up with prompting from others. But of course, you know, we have those students in poverty that are going to have very low expectations. Their standards are going to be quite low, and of course our expectation will be that counselors, teachers, janitors will help them push that up. But I think that's a good idea.
Can you
Jamie,
put that in a sentence?
I'm waiting for Jamie to maybe have an idea here.
No. I'm still trying to think about what I was trying to chime in with.
Oh.
Because I think, talk about full potential, and we were talking about things that limit potential, and one of the biggest limitations to potential is desire. And I think helping students identify and grow their desire is what ties into potential. Because you can't teach somebody something that doesn't want to learn.
Yeah. Which ties back to, again, I think our priorities, you know, the climate. If we can, which basically what that climate priority talks about is that if we can make the environment in the school such that a kid wants to be there, desires to be there, well, we've got it made. So again, here's part of that tying back into a higher level paradigm, order of where we're going. So that desire thing is important as well. Yes, Kayla.
Okay, in regards to the desire thing, so I don't know how long ago, a couple weeks ago, Miss Wiper asked me to like sit down and do this little interview with her that she'd show the teachers, and it was about how teachers interact with their students, and it got me thinking, and it kind of goes along with this. So it seems like kids have a greater desire to learn when they have a better relationship with their teacher, because if you don't have a relationship with your teacher, like you just don't get along or whatever, it's either you just want to stick it to them because you don't care, or you just don't have the desire to learn. But when you have a teacher that you don't want to disappoint, it pushes you to learn, and it pushes you like, I don't want to get a bad grade on this because I like this teacher. I don't want them to think poorly of me. So I think maybe developing teacher relationships would really help.
I think that could go back to number 2 with modeling behavior with the teachers. And I think that kind of ties into number 3 also, though.
Mm-hmm. What I want to do, we've had some great ideas here. I mean, this is a very good goal, and we've decided that the board and the student board believes that it should be assured that all staff have time, resources, and professional development to identify the potential in each student, not just teachers. I think that's good. We've got a lot of thoughts here. Mary's taken down a lot of things. We've got the algorithm that's going to be coming to us next board meeting, and we have this idea about putting it on students themselves to identify what their long-term goals could be by the time they get to 12th grade, and they can measure that progress, and it flows with, you know, the career development that we start in middle school. So there's some ideas there that I think we need to develop a little bit. I don't think that maybe we're going to be able to come up with it this evening and still get through the rest of these. So I think again, being an adoptive process, I'm happy with where we've gotten on this. We've confirmed and clarified our goal that we want to do. We just need to figure out how to measure this. So, to be continued. And Ralph, if you have the answer next board meeting, it'll be done. It'll be a check off. So let's go to number 4. In the power of effective teaching, we believe in the power of effective teaching, which encourages students to be inquisitive and to explore and to discover. And I think my goal is pretty lame, so I'd not even like to start with it. So, number 4. Our belief is we believe in the power of effective teaching, which encourages students to be inquisitive and to explore and to discover. How can we create a goal that the board can be responsible and accountable for? It's a tough one. I mean, is this something that we just trust administration to do? I mean, it's part of our superintendent's job description. But the whole thing about being inquisitive and exploring and discovering kind of reminded me of what our math teacher was talking about tonight, thinking differently than we did in school. Discovering, finding out for yourself, being inquisitive. I think the things that he's doing promote those kinds of activities.
I think that the staff is passionate, even if you have a couple that aren't. I know that there are music teachers and art teachers that are pushing kids that even aren't in their departments to go. I know that there's one teacher at my high school that pushes everyone to do it. I think starting at a young age, you have good fine arts people that are trying to get as many kids as they can on there. I know that there are coaches always pushing kids. I think that this is a relatively good set thing that this district has, is the diversity of things that we can do. And then you guys do send teachers to seminars and conferences. Like my mom spent a week in a technology one in Colorado over the summer. And those teachers are willing to take the time. I think this is a good thing that you guys already have down.
So you think there are some teachers that that push you to be inquisitive, to explore and discover. Others not so much. We'd like all our teachers to be those teachers that make you curious. I don't know. Well, do we go back to my goal, and that's engage administration to research how we can meet federal and Iowa achievement requirements while still finding time to foster creativity and a love of learning? What are you saying? I know, but before we do that, you're saying, I don't think it's an absolutely bad goal, now that I look at it.
The goal is fine.
Yeah.
Well, sort of. I the belief statement is more broad and kind of out there, like, let's go explore, let's go discover, let's go change the world. And by tempering that with requirements and I don't like that, and I don't want it to be strict. I interpret this to be, the sky's the limit, let's get you there if that's where you want to be. Not, you have to do this good on a test because Iowa says you do, and that's how we're going to judge this. I don't think that's fair, because some kids test great, some kids don't, but man, they can go gangbusters if you put them on a project or, have them do arts or music or whatever. So this to me is more creative than discipline.
Okay. So it's a good belief. We're just having trouble with the goal.
I agree completely with that. I think the belief statement is great. I think that the goal is lame, as you originally.
Only the author is supposed to be able to say things are lame. That's really not intended for other people to say that.
No, but that's how you described them.
Well, that's because it's my thing.
Right, I understand. And I'm agreeing with what you said. So the thing that makes it lame to me is meeting federal and Iowa achievement requirements, which I think are way below 100%. And I think that's what Director DeSalvo was just talking about. I think just meeting some goals that a bunch of legislators put together.
But please look at the end of that while still finding time.
I understand.
To foster creativity.
I understand that. But the part that
because we got to do that. We got to do the first part. Got to do it.
But to me, that has
I hate it.
It has nothing to do with the belief statement. The belief statement, as Director DeSalvo said, I think, is reaching for the stars, and it is not meeting some legislatively established requirement. I just
Well, you can call it lame when you come up with a goal.
okay.
Not before.
Shots
I
fired.
this is again a good belief statement. Jamie.
I too like the belief statement, but it seems awfully repetitive and basically restates number 3 just in another way, in my opinion.
Number 3, we must have high expectations for every student and that each student will reach their full potential. Number 4, we believe in the power of effective teaching, which encourages students to be inquisitive and to explore and discover.
Put a semicolon
There's
there.
a number of these that do. Would the board feel comfortable in dropping number 4? If not, if we modified number 3 to incorporate aspects that aren't included in number 3. I'm all for reducing the number of beliefs if we've got redundancy, especially if we can't find a goal around it. Then we end up with Jamie going by the thing and saying, well, yeah, but what are we doing? So I think that's not a bad idea of deleting number 4 as a belief statement. There's a few of us here on this side of the table that believe that might be an adequate response, board members.
And just to clarify, it's our goal on number 3 that I think is restating what our belief is in number 4.
Clyde, Dan, Ralph, you okay with deleting number 4?
Yeah, I guess I am. I think we have too many to begin with. I mean, it's hard to do this many things. I actually like the belief statement, but because of my belief in simplicity, I would agree to trying to reduce it.
What do you think, Clyde?
I don't have a problem with reducing. As I look at a lot of these goals, I think goals are important, but I'm not quite sure it needs to be in the belief statement, because the real work is in the details, and you can't do the details in these goals that you have here. What we're talking about is belief, what we're about, what we're trying to achieve. Now, I don't think any of these goals that we're talking about so far, we can really measure that well quantitatively. And therefore, it's really in the detail of the work to be done to reach those, what we're actually trying to achieve, what we believe in. I don't know if we need to actually sit here and describe every goal and how we're going to get there.
It's my goal to do that.
Okay, well, I just thought I'd mention that.
I think
Okay.
it's important in terms of this paradigm to be able to support
Well,
belief statements. Otherwise, they're just belief statements. We believe in it. What are you going to do about it?
Well, again, the only part that I disagree with you about is how are you going to convert that to quantitative means to be able to interpret whether you're getting
Well, I think with our first 3,
belief.
our first 3, I think we've identified quantitative ways to do it. But number 4, if everyone is okay, I think we're going to drop that out, but we will look at it to make sure that if there's a point in it that isn't covered in number 3, we'll make sure it's in number 3. Okay, on to number 5. And it's 8 o'clock. Should we stop after 5? Let's stop after 5. This will be our last one. You guys have added a lot of energy to this. I appreciate it. All right, number 5. Every individual in the Davenport Community School District has the right to a safe environment. Every individual in the Davenport Community, every individual, not just students again, every individual in the Davenport Community School District has the right to a safe environment. I mean, this is one of the reasons that we all ran as board members is safe environment. What should be our goal in regards to that belief, that strong belief that we hold? What should we expect? What should we do about it?
We have a safety goal where I work, and it's for incidents. So when I hear safety, that's the first thing I'm thinking, like, you know, how many incidents do we have? But I don't think that's fair. It's much broader than that. Like, I think of the kids walking longer distances to get to school. That's safety related. I think of, you know, issues that have been in the media about our staff. That's safety related. I think about keeping our children safe while they're on their way to school, while they're in school, and when they leave the building. So it's big, and it's not just an incident.
It's different.
So how do you measure it?
I know, that's why I don't know. There's multiple layers in there that you could really track and monitor but I don't know. There's a lot that happens that we probably aren't even aware of.
Well, to start with, I mean, I had the goal that administration will regularly poll and report back to the board on students and staff about their opinions on safety. Now, we actually do that. We have a Iowa Youth survey poll that takes place every 4 or 5 years, which reports on information like that. It's not done by the school district. It's done by some other organization. I'm not sure who. Linda?
You know, I had a situation a couple weeks ago that really, really made me think about this particular belief. I was leaving for work one day. It was like 6:30 in the morning on the corner of Central Park and that next street that's west of Fairmont. There was a little body. I mean, it was dark right on the corner. There's a little body that was on their knees and just kind of hovered down on the ground waiting on the bus. And as I got to the corner, I first thought it was an animal, but then I saw it was a student. And I thought, oh, I wish I wasn't in a hurry. I would sit here and just wait until the bus came. And I got to thinking about, is that safe for that little person to be there? And I almost felt like it was my responsibility to wait for the bus. But then I thought, no, they'll be okay. I have somewhere else to be. And that really made me think about this particular goal on how do we measure it, because just like there's that person, I'm sure there's someone else.
If we don't, who will?
Exactly.
Were you going to say something, Marissa?
I think polls only do so much, honestly. I know a lot of them aren't taken seriously by students, which is not okay. But I think maybe starting at a younger age, telling these students that it is okay to talk to the staff about things like maybe something that's going on, bullying at school, mentally, physically. I think starting at a younger age, we need to be telling these kids that that's okay. Even for telling them, hey, I don't feel safe with this, and maybe doing these polls and then getting the kids to think about, hey, maybe I'm not feeling safe. I don't know how you could measure anything really, but I think it just students need to feel a lot more comfortable talking about that stuff also. And then other students also, like, if you're telling your friend about it, maybe making those students feel comfortable enough to go to someone that they feel is reliable to share that information for that friend's safety. I don't know.
That video that Dr. Tate presented last year, it was incredibly moving. It was about violence and, I can't remember this. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was very powerful. I don't know if we could do anything with that, but that was Very powerful. But it was the same kind of thing, Marissa. It was a video of students that had experienced firsthand abuse, and it was a blind video, so you could only see, you know, part of their face or their eyes, and they told their story, and they were brave enough to come forward and do that, and felt comfortable with whomever they were speaking with, that it's not acceptable, and we're going to stand up and we're going to fight this, and it was kind of along that line. It gives me goosebumps.
So safety is such a broad issue. I mean, I worry about active shooters in the school building, all the way down to that little person on the school corner. It's huge. What kind of goal can you have except to keep everybody safe? I don't know. And how do you measure that? It's so vast. There's psychological safety. There's physical safety. That's a tough one.
It is. That's part of what I was thinking about, how broad it was, and the issues of safety, whether it is on the street corner or the bus stop or bullying, and then going back to Director DeSalvo's opening remarks on this, and in industries and in most businesses, you have to keep track of statistics, and there's statistical. There are numbers that really mean things. There's an experience modification rate. There's, the OSHA, EPA, DNR. I mean, there are so many regulatory organizations that require a lot of this type of data. It is data that we probably track. And what happens is when you do track it, especially like with respect to OSHA, you might find out that you're trending to having a lot of finger incidents or back incidents, things like that, and then you can address it through maybe we need to provide more equipment, do whatever. But safety in that method is very measurable, and it's required to be measured, at least in industry. I don't know if it is required in governmental organizations like a school district. But I think the other part is that it is just so broad. Then maybe we need here, again, maybe it's going to take several goals. Almost every year I ask about insurance and how that relates to incident rates and things like that. But I think there are disconnects between industry and something like a school district. Mm-hmm. But it does apply to every single employee. That is certain. But I don't know about students.
Yeah, not being a factory floor, there are really very few objective ways to try to measure safety in our students. No OSHA issues with walking home from school, etc. It's are you being bullied? You know, are you reporting things that are so subjective that you might not want to even bring them up? Yeah, it's considerably different. Linda?
Now, in narrowing that down to just the buildings for safety, is Raptor like in every school building, everyone now?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a narrow for to keeping people out. That's a measurable goal. You know, we could measure the number of reported bully situations, but I don't know how we could do safety as a broad spectrum, because there's no way we could do it.
That is one objective way to measure safety with the Raptor system.
Mm-hmm.
Julie?
What if we made each, building or level or everybody has a safety committee at your school to make sure maybe that's something that's kind of already in place, I don't know, but starting with getting the kids there safely to safety while they're in the school, like then leaving. I know that, you go by any school on any given day when they're either coming or going, and there's staff all over the place, and they're making sure that, the kids are getting across the street okay, or they're getting in the building okay, and that people that aren't supposed to be in the building aren't getting it. There's a lot of things that happen every day that could be part of like a group. So if you had a safety committee at each school or each level or something, maybe that could come up with policies that they felt would keep them more safe. Maybe that could be our goal, and then measure their successes or something.
Why are you doing that look?
Because I was thinking about the superintendent's responsibility, which he alluded to, and my sense is that we're starting to get into the weeds. And so, and I've wondered about that even from a policy governance perspective as we think about these, because our goals have to be board goals, I think. And so we might have ideas, but somehow, I do think, and it does talk about every individual in the district. So that's everybody. That's every employee and every student. It may include every parent and visitor. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure that is something that weighs on the superintendent, is kind of what does it mean? How do I make sure? I think we all thought about the recent bus crash in Tennessee and how something like that would affect everybody. I know, at least I suspect as board members, you all thought about that. I'm certain that the superintendent did as well. What would something like that do? Because that's a safety issue. How much control did the board or the superintendent of that district, I think it was Chattanooga, have, and something like that? But it would sure be, it'd be a dramatic issue.
Certainly would. Do you have, in your student council government, do you have safety committees, anything like what we're talking about here? Nothing.
Could create one though, Rich.
Could create one. What do you think? Is it an idea that at the high school level is worth considering? A safety committee. You already have some organizations like Girls Learn that talk about stuff like this.
North doesn't have that to my knowledge.
Don't you?
Mm-mm.
Central does. There's Girls Learn. I thought it was at Central.
Oh, we have Girls Learn.
Yeah, but okay.
That might be something to look into. I think your goal should be take safety precautions or actions that the board deems necessary. I think there's always going to be like the what ifs of the bullies and all that stuff. I think you guys can just try your hardest, but it's life. It's going to throw things at you. So I think your goal should just be try your hardest.
Well, could we lay it on the superintendent to provide the board a quarterly report on safety in Davenport schools? And that report would be based on this, is it a 4-year, there's a very broad survey that comes out to all, what is it? Iowa Youth Survey. Is that 4? It could be based on that. I don't know if we do any surveying of students in between times or if we get reports, but perhaps an expectation for the board, not to be micromanagement oriented, but to ask the superintendent to provide us quarterly reports on safety in Davenport schools. It's a very important thing for us to be aware of.
I think so, Rich. But I'm sort of getting lost here because we're talking about a lot of things. And I was under the impression that we were trying to get these goals down. And I understand what we believe in, the first statement, and then the goals on the bottom. But it sounds like more like we're trying to create it right here. Are we accepting any of this that we've talked about so far? I mean, when we meet the next time, are we going to go through all of these again? Or can we say we think this, as it's written, the first one anyway, not the goals, not to showing the results? Because we seem to think for whatever the goal is, we have to be able to show the result. it's an idea of what we're thriving for. It's not really, some of this is not measurable. Even if we say we can measure it, it's almost impossible. When you're talking safety, there are so many variables in safety. How are we going to quantify it? How are we going to measure it? But we are trying to get the best safety environment that we can get. Some of that work belongs in the superintendent's corner and what he is able to create with staff, I would think. And hopefully that we agree with it. Some of it we can do. We can talk about it. We can approve it. But we're more the visionaries at trying to create this. The board goes here. And it sounds like we're trying to create the entire how to measure it, if we've gotten there or not. And there's some things we can do that, but some of these are almost impossible to do. And it's going to take us a lot longer if we're trying to prove every single one of these goals that we're trying to do in a quantitative manner. I don't even know if we can do it because there's so many variables in every single one. But it's something to think about if we want to get through this in the next 6 months.
Well, you're exactly right. This is hard work. I never anticipated this would be easy. But unless somebody takes responsibility for making our beliefs happen, it's not going to happen. The superintendent has a lot on his plate, but he's looking for guidance from this board to tell him what's important. And what we have is we've narrowed down, just give me a couple minutes. We've narrowed down the number of belief statements that we have. Are we going to continue to walk by these belief statements and say, well, it's a hell of a belief statement. What are you doing? Well, superintendent's taking care of it. That's fine, and he does. But what I'm saying, the reason
with what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that we're going to put it on his shoulders and walk away. What I am saying is that he's pretty much going to carry all of these out. We are not going to do that ourselves as board members. So much is being put on the superintendent. Whether we want it to be that way or not, he's the one that makes sure it happens or doesn't happen. So what we're trying to do is at least set up the goals of what our intent is. He's going to help us quantitatively see whether we're reaching those goals or not. But it's kind of hard for us to sit here and set the quantitative goals and say we did or we did not make it without even getting the results back of what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to set up measurements, and I think that's hard to do.
It's very hard to do. Very hard to do. And the president brought this up at the very beginning. He says these things have got to be measurable, and I agree. They need to be measurable. And we can throw this whole thing away if it's not of any use to the board. But
no, I'm not asking that.
What I'm saying is that every one of these belief statements, we're going to be looking to the superintendent to make happen. All I'm saying with this one is that we might require a quarterly report on the safety of our students and staff in Davenport schools. Now, nobody else can give us a report but the superintendent on that. It's not that the board is going to be involved in every nitpick and detail, but we are accountable to our constituents to make sure that this belief happens. And
So-
we can just say, okay, superintendent, take care of it, but I think the board needs to be accountable because we are, in the end, accountable to the people that we serve.
So can we say then that the board is going to give us a quarterly report or 6 month or a year that deals with that takes care of that? I mean, because we're really sitting here trying to figure it out right now
That's
as
what
to
I'm
what
sug-
that report's
that's what I'm
going to be and the
suggesting.
details of it. What I'm saying, we don't need to go to that length at this time, even though it's important that we get that information, but I think he's going to provide us with that information.
Exactly.
We can't design the program right here and now.
No, that's why I'm
To receive
suggesting that the goal would be that we request that the superintendent provide a quarterly report on safety in Davenport schools.
Good. Now we got that one solved. What's next?
Well, it's not quite solved, because we got Ralph.
Oh,
Yeah,
I forgot.
I
We
don't
do
think,
have Ralph.
I don't think that just because two board members say something that it means it's solved. I was I was looking at the
Need three.
belief statement, and and I was looking at the wording, and it says has the right to a safe environment, and right is a really, really interesting word, and it reminded me of Director Kluhl's thoughts on basic human rights. And so I pulled up the Declaration of Independence, and I'll just read a small part of it. But we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I thought, I don't think that our government necessarily measures these rights. And I think measuring a right or measuring an expectation of a right is very difficult. A couple other comments I wanted to make. I think that if we were ever going to get to the level of establishing a periodic report, quarterly, I think, is very, very challenging. And in the policy committee, we've tried to be very careful about requiring certain periodicities because of the challenge. And so oftentimes we'll say periodic or yearly sometimes, but when does the year occur? And I think that if we were going to get into that debate, I would say that quarterly is exceptionally difficult, especially if you don't know what you're measuring. The other idea I wanted to throw out on the table, though, as we think about it, is a parametric analysis of safety, which there may be some other way of measuring safety other than what we're thinking about. We think about industry and OSHA and stuff like that. We think about bullying, but there may be something parametric that we could identify. Anyway, I'd like to get back to...
Dan would like to chime in.
Oh, good.
In the middle of what I'm saying?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, well,
Yes. Try to cut him off.
that's up to
You got the
Director.
floor. Continue.
So anyways, just a thought, but I was going to say that I'd like to get into quarterly reports. I think is just very, very specific that whether it's the right thing to do or not, I think it would take a lot more work than establishing that right here. And I think that's kind of what Director Mayfield was talking about, but I would be opposed to a requirement for quarterly reports.
And with when Dawn sends out her information, that's sort of a kind of up to date as to what's going on. That's major. We're not getting everything that happens in each building, but all the major incidents. We can track that through her emails that she sends out.
You got Director Gosa.
Yes, thank you. Director Gosa.
Finally. I just wanted to say, those unity on the rock boxing school.
Hey, Dan, could you step back from the microphone or whatever you're talking a little bit? It's a little bit broken up.
All right, can you hear me now?
That's better.
All right. What I was saying is I agree with you on the reports, the quarterly reports. I think that's a good idea. And I would like to see maybe like a drop box in the schools where students and staff could drop their safety concerns in and parents. And then that way the school would be aware of some of the concerns so maybe they could address them before they become bigger issues. And that's all I was trying to get in for like a half an hour.
Well, you should break in earlier, because that was a relief to hear a positive way that we might create a goal. I think that's good. I appreciate it. Director DeSalvo has a thought.
We have badges that we wear at work, and we gave all of our employees a stop card. And so if they were ever asked to do something that they felt wasn't safe, they pull the card and say, I'm not doing that. That is not safe. So I'm kind of trying to relay that back to our students and our staff and everybody. Like, you see something unsafe, you pull the stop card, or I don't know. And I'm kind of grasping. I'm tired, but something like that. So they would feel comfortable in reporting, or just I don't know, breaking the silence. I don't know. It's not working for me. I'll come up with it for next time.
I think we have entered the twilight zone. I think maybe we've gotten as far as we can tonight. Not just you, it's all of us. I think we've probably hit the limit here. I thought we've done some good work. I appreciate it. This is hard work. I think it's worthwhile work. We have, Director Mayfield, you asked, are we going to go over all this stuff again? I think we've gone through the first 4. We've fallen down here on number 5, because this is hard to think of. And I don't know, Art, do you have any thoughts on number 5 before we close up shop here? I mean, how hard would it be for you to provide a semi-annual report on safety in Davenport schools?
Well, I can, but we've never had an active shooter incident, so it's 0, so that looks pretty good. It could happen any minute. So reports, okay, what have we forgotten? You've got to think broader than that. You've got to think about how are you supporting the safety efforts of this district. Like when we had the incident in Connecticut, the first thing you did was let me take things from way off on the strategic plan and bring them up and just get our buildings safe. That's the kind of mindset I think you need to be. Getting down to what's happening in the schools and safety committees, that's too far in the weeds for you guys. So I just challenge you, all of us, to think broader on what do we need from the board to keep us safe.
Well, good words. It's a challenge for us to try to do that. We'll come back at this at some future time. I do appreciate the boards and the student school board members adding to this, because you added a lot to this process. So it is part of our vision statement, and we did it tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Director Kluhl, for leading that, and student board members, as Director Kluhl said, you contributed so much tonight. And yeah, it is. It's really cool. We need that kind of thinking and vibrance, I guess, in what we do. So thank you again. We'll move on to administrative reports.
None?
Are there any board requests? None. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned.